Hey there, hi there, and a ho there. It's me, GameZar. Today I want to talk to you about a sensitive subject. This is a subject that affects us all in one way or the other, and that subject is addiction. I would like to tell you the story of my addiction and my recovery through said addiction. But before we begin all that, we first must start and begin our story with a common thread of lies that is a common theme throughout the story. I had my first experience of marijuana at 15 years old. I was hooked pretty much immediately. I had found that it had helped my anxiety, and I basically give up on things that made things feel so much more clear. In other words, whenever I used this plant, it made things feel better, for lack of a better term. Not in a, oh, I am high sense, but in a, oh, I can do things sense. Whenever I use this plant, I get very productive. I start doing dishes, for example. If I use the right amount. If I use too much, well, that's a different story. But you don't use too much, problem solved. Bada bing, bada boom. It's very easy to gauge how much you use with this plant. So for a while, I only smoked cannabis, and then I got introduced to psychedelics, acid for the first time. Now, psychedelics have been both a positive force and a negative force in my life, I will admit. On the positive, I've gained an experience that I can never say that I've experienced or will experience again, but on the negative, my mental health has been negatively impacted because of psychedelic drugs. See, I used to talk about on my channel, when I started experimenting with these drugs, about the effects of said drugs on me, mostly. And one of the effects of psychedelic drugs is if you are predisposed to mental disorders, you can have severe negative consequences due to the psychedelic experience. This is why you should use with precaution or just completely avoid altogether psychedelics in general. They're not for everybody, as the saying goes. At around age of 17, I was introduced to the drug known as MDMA. Now, for the first time I'd used it, it was actually MDMA, as far as I know. We think it was, at least. I experienced complete psychedelic euphoria. That was something that I had never experienced before. And little did I know. But little did I know, my dealer, that dastardly man, was giving me methamphetamine. You see, a large part of people who think they're using MDMA are actually just using methamphetamine. Or MDMA that is mixed with meth, and this appeared to be the case with me to get me hooked on meth. Eventually, it got to the point where the psychedelics and the MDMA ran out. The magic mushrooms had gone away, and the fun was no more to be had. But you know what was there? You know what was still there? Speed. About this time, I began college and was prescribed Adderall again. And this is where I just want to step right in. I have a rough history with Adderall. I have a real rough history with Adderall. I was first prescribed it at age 12. And I was taking a legendary dose of about 20 milligrams per day at that age, which isn't a lot, but for a child to be using 20 milligrams of amphetamines, probably not the... I mean, I was a cut above the rest, let's just say that. As an adult, I was taking about 30 milligrams a day, then 15 milligrams extended release, which is a small dose when you're using two types of amphetamines, which is a small dose in general, but when you're using two types of amphetamines, you know, it's a rather high dose. So playing with fire. Plus, I'm on mood stabilizers, so playing with fire. The thing is, and here's the fuck thing, Adderall does nothing to me. You see, I have ADHD, but Adderall does nothing to me. For some people, Adderall does nothing to them. It's a stimulant medication that doesn't really work on me. I know, as messed up as that sounds. So once I had was done with the medication, I began moving on to stronger stimulants. You know what's stronger than dextroamphetamine? Methamphetamine. And this is more or less a precautionary tale of why you shouldn't willy-nilly prescribe kids stimulants at a young age. By this point, in college, I am no longer hiding my drug use. The lies have folded in and do not matter anymore. When I had first started using methamphetamine, it was slow and not rapid, but it eventually got to the point where I was starting to see psychotic delusions. One of the delusions was that I had lit myself on fire or was about to light myself on fire and had to be stopped, and I was repeating this cycle every day, 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 until I snapped. So we snapped. We had a psychotic breakdown. Eventually the cops got called on me. I gave up immediately. I fucking folded. And I went to the hospital where I spent 14 days and then immediately came home, went back to the hospital because I relapsed on marijuana. During this time, my parents said I could no longer live with them, and it kind of opened up my eyes to the reality of the situation. Now, theoretically, I could have fought them, and they would have theoretically had to evict me, and that would have theoretically been a long process, and I would have theoretically been very annoying, and they would have theoretically hated me for that, but none of that happened because I just manned up and moved the fuck on with my life. My parents and I still have a blossoming relationship. I go over for the holidays. They come over every few weeks. Things are pretty fucking normal. After I got back out of the hospital, I began a journey of getting a caseworker, sobering up, and so far I have been 16 months, almost 17 months off of methamphetamine. As many people now know, I have a medical marijuana card, so I use medical marijuana, and I occasionally have a drink of alcohol here or there. In conclusion, I want to say that recovery is possible for everybody, if they have the willpower to do so. But what they really need is a good support system along the way. Thank you for listening, and have a good day. Bye!